Today's episode of The Life of Bryony is pretty damn special, if I say so myself. You're probably one of the 2 million people who follow the poet Donna Ashworth on social media. I know I am. Today on The Life of Bryony, you're going to hear a side of her that she has never spoken about before in depth. Donna is here to talk about fighting back from anorexia, how she's learned to embrace grief, and her special connection with spirituality. I should warn you that I did cry a lot during this episode. So if you're a sensitive soul like me and Donna, you might want to grab a tissue.
To me, it felt like an addiction. It also felt like when I had to finally break free from it, I felt like I was murdering a person. And when everything failed, my eating disorder was always there for me. She would say, "You'll never get this from anything else or anybody else. You'll regret killing me." But innately, I knew that she was also killing me at the same time.
My chat with Donna coming up right after this. Donna Ashworth. Welcome to The Life of Bryony.
Oh, I can't believe I'm actually here. I've looked at it from afar for so long. And ta-da!
Donna, you are, in case anyone's been living under a rock, a poet. And your poetry it speaks to the heart. Joy Chose You, Donna. That's the name of your new book.
That sounded so lovely when you said it like that.
So this is a compilation of all of your most kind of viral poems.
Yes.
Because lots of people will have seen Donna's work on social media. There is some new stuff in here. You told me that your very early poetry was all about body image. And I wondered if there were any in here that you maybe could read, one that perhaps you could read that might kind of stick out to you.
Yes, absolutely, because we were talking a lot about that. I think in the beginning, I really wanted to talk to women because I was at that stage in my life where I looked around and I thought, it's time to gather the women. Because when you gather women, it really is, I know it's overused and oversaid and becomes a bit cheesy, but magic really does happen. And I think women are meant to gather. We're meant to have that community. And I think often in modern life, we just, we don't do it in the way we might have done it 50 years ago or 100 years ago with the groups and the way that villages and towns were set up. And I just really was craving that sort of big conversation with other women. How does she do it? Oh, well, actually, I'm not doing it. Here's the truth. I'm struggling. And last week I could barely cope and all of these things that we weren't saying. So poetry seemed like a brilliant way to get to these difficult conversations and deep topics without having to go through 10 layers of small talk first. You can go straight to the crux. So here is one that I wrote that kind of sums up the journey with body image issues, I think. And it's called, "Or You Could Just Live." You are going to wish your body was more. You are going to wish your body was less. You are going to wish your body would change. You are going to wish your body would not. You are going to wish your body was many things between now and the day you leave this mortal coil. And one day, as is always the way, you will look back and see that your body was always as it should be, doing its best to be you, for you. And you are then going to wish that just once you had told your body, "I accept you as you are right now." And that maybe had you done this, you would have spared yourself a lifetime of wishing for something you didn't really ever need. That what it was you should have been wishing for, in fact, was the courage to accept, the strength to embrace, the wisdom to really see what you already have.
Wow. I don't know about you listening, wherever you're listening, be it on the tube, on the bus, in your car, or out on your walk, but that just landed straight in the middle of my heart.
And you are so good at helping us with that.
Can we talk about body image? Because one of the reasons you said to me that you've sort of skirted around the subject of your history of mental illness and eating disorders, but you've never really gone deep into it. And we've been sort of talking a bit about it, haven't we, behind the scenes, because obviously they're both issues. I've experienced eating disorders and spoken publicly about them. And would you feel comfortable kind of talking about that today?
Completely. I think, we say this a lot, but the love lives in the sharing of the ugly truth as well as all the wonderful stuff, because every time you share something about yourself that you thought maybe you had to hide or was too, repulsive to be told, what you're doing is you're giving somebody else a gift in that moment, and you're passing on the courage for them to either accept themselves in that moment or share something that's going to bring in such healing. And if you keep all that to yourself, then, we're withholding it from one another. And we really desperately need to share the ugly truths with one another. And body image issues and eating disorders and so on, it is ugly, There's not a lot of space to talk about it in society. People are worried it will bring down the mood, or it's just not the done thing. So it's not that I've not wanted to talk about it. It's just that, there's not often a huge opportunity to discuss it. But it's so important.
I feel it's so interesting what you've just said, because I totally agree. There is something about eating disorders and speaking publicly that weirdly, I feel like we hold back a bit in a way that perhaps we don't. I mean, obviously, stigma attaches itself to all mental illnesses.
Yes.
Like, let's not say, it's really easy to talk about addiction.
None of it's really glamorous.
None of it is easy to talk about. Obviously, these conversations are hard. I think that for me, talking about, I don't talk that much anymore about bulimia, which I had from my sort of teens through to my early 30s. And I spoke about binge eating disorder, and then I just stopped speaking about it, because every time I spoke about it or mentioned it on social media, I would get someone say, you should have put a trigger warning on this. And it made me feel like I was hurting other people with my conversation. And actually, I know that the truth is that when we talk about these things, we help other people.
We do.
As you say, shame dies when we expose it to the light. And I'm really incredibly grateful to anyone who opens up with deep vulnerability about the dark places that eating disorders take us, and that I know are incredibly common for a lot of women of our age in our in their 40s, 50s, 30s, who we grew up with a sort of disordered eating was normalized.
I don't think it would be easier for me to think of somebody who didn't have an issue than it would be, to think of all the people that have. I don't think many women get away without some sort of disordered food noise or, body image noise, because it was drummed into us all the way through our formative years, from childhood, through teenage years. And it was blatantly okay back then to say it out loud, to say, you need to lose weight. You'll never be able to do this because you don't look right. These things were said to us on a daily basis, and the culture's changed now. You have to, people are aware of what they say, and you wouldn't be able to say that now without somebody saying, you can't say that. That's
we would shame.
Unkind, and it's not helpful.
Yeah, and also celebrities would be shamed for
all the time.
People that were not in any way fat. And let's also just say now here that it is not, being fat is not, quote unquote, a sin. It is not the worst thing in the world. Like,
None of
that's
it
not
is.
An insult.
Whatever it is that you face or you're going through, or whatever way your disordered eating takes you, or whatever it is, if it's an addiction or mental illness, it doesn't matter what it is. Everything needs to be accepted immediately in the moment and then talked through and shared in order to heal. I don't think you can heal if you're unable to talk through it and share it and, be able to accept that that is your journey and that's what you faced and come through, and somebody else's looks completely different, but the bones of it are the same. I'm not enough. How can I fit in better? How can I like myself better? How can I navigate this world without feeling every single day that I'm useless and unlovable? And that's where it all comes back to. The bones of it are the same, but the symptoms vary wildly.
That thing, absolutely, that we are a generation of women for whom it was more peculiar to have a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
That was the exception.
Yeah, it was the exception, for sure.
That's sort of bone chilling, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is. And health was the last thing on anybody's mind. And I was having a conversation with my mum this morning. There was a period of my life for about at least 10 years where I did not have nutrition. And the damage that must have done long term, I didn't have a period for 6 years.
Really?
And, I've got 2 children. How absolutely lucky am I? But I lived on wine gums and Pepsi Max for a year once.
Really? And you ate nothing else?
Nothing else. I would go out and I would have a pizza with friends, and I would eat a bit of pizza and I would have a drink. But, during the day, to keep myself, I worked in a magazine, to keep myself, fueled, hilarious, and on the go, it was caffeine and sugar, just constantly. And my poor bones.
Yeah.
But that was not that unnormal. Nobody talked about health very much. You talked about dieting. You talked about looking better. You talked about, all of that, but it was never about, are you fueling your body properly?
So can we go back to because you suffered from anorexia for the first time. It was in your teens.
Yeah, about 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you feel sort of, because obviously I don't want to
No, not absolutely.
How do you feel about talking about one of the most traumatic experiences
Absolutely
of your life?
fine.
Yeah.
Because isn't it wonderful, number one, that I'm on the other side of it, and number two, that I can look back now and sort of see, where that came from, and possibly be useful to somebody else who's there, or has a teenage daughter who's there, or son. But for me, it started out as a diet, because I think somebody said something to me about chubby cheeks on my face. And I thought, I'll get rid of those and I'll eat cereal. Do you remember when 2 bowls of cereal a day?
Special K.
Yeah, I did that.
The Special K diet.
Yes. And then have a normal dinner. And the problem with me being an overachiever, an overthinker, and oversensitive is that I was too good at it. So instead of having 2 bowls of cereal and then a meal, I thought, what would happen if I just had a bowl of cereal and nothing else for the rest of the day? And so almost snuck up on me, really, really quickly, before I remember stepping on scales and the number was 5 something. And I was wearing sort of 4 pairs of trousers and tights to try and hide the fact. So it caught me by surprise at first. And then I managed to sort of go down the route of affirmations, Reiki, self-help, which was really difficult back then. We had to order the books from America. Luckily, my mum sent me on the right track. Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Body, how your thoughts change the chemicals, how emotions create chemicals, and how you can actually heal your body through your thinking and the way that you're using your thoughts. That saved my life 100%. But then, of course, you leave home. I moved away, and in my 20s, I was in the music industry, which, oh my goodness, back then was a hideous dog-eat-dog world. It chewed me up and spat me out in so many ways. I had an album, I got signed for my album, and it got me again. And looking back, I realised now that I was so thin at the time that my manager did say to me, you're not going to make it because you look strange. But every time somebody said that to me, I thought they were trying to set me up for failure. You're just jealous. You wish you could be as thin as me, is where my brain went. Here you go, trying to sabotage me again. I know, everybody wants to sabotage me and make me fat. That's where your brain goes, they're all trying to make you fat. And then when you're fat, nobody will love you and they'll leave you and then you won't have anything. So your ability to control your weight becomes your best friend, your superpower. You're in a chaotic life where nothing's going right. You can rely on the fact that you can starve. And it becomes like a bliss. There is a bliss in it. It's awful. It's really awful. It's terrifying. So yeah, it was a very, very tricky time. I think I maybe went through it 2 more times before I finally got through it to the point where I could say, I'm through that and I'm over it and I'm on the other side.
We did an event on Friday and you spoke about your mum actually having to take you away from quote unquote real life to a cabin somewhere in Scotland to kind of break the habit. Would you mind talking about that?
Yeah, we did it cold turkey. I was living in Manchester and I knew because I had done a lot of the work with Reiki and affirmations and, I had done a lot of the work. I knew I could see innately what was going on here. You're back in it. You're in the throes of your eating disorder again. You're not thinking straight. You have to get out. It's the only way to get out is to get out and then change. I think changing your physical place is a wonderful way of changing your perspective because you're literally physically moving yourself out of your daily life. So when we go on holiday or away for the weekend, we sometimes get that shift in our life where we say, I need to change because you're out of your own day-to-day. You can see more clearly back inside. I always say to myself now, if I need to get out of a problem, I walk up a hill. Luckily, they're right behind my house. And I literally go and I take a higher perspective and I look back down physically and mentally and on a soul level, I can see more clearly what the problem is when I'm out of it. So my mum and I went off they actually owned a little cabin in a Boyne in the middle of the Scottish Highlands, gorgeous. And I think it was 3 weeks we were there. And all I had to do, my job every day was to eat normally and not weigh myself. And then I had a panic attack in the middle of the night, maybe 4 or 5 nights in. And I only remembered this a week or so ago. And I had to get to a set of scales. And my mum had to take me the next morning, crack of dawn, to the local village, to the GP office and beg for me to use the scales. Because that was my addiction, to see that number, to see what damage I had done to myself.
And by damage, you mean the damage you had done to yourself by eating normally?
By eating normally.
So tell me, because I think this is really important. You just said all I had to do
was
eat normally.
Yeah.
Like 3 meals a day.
Just like everybody else.
How torturous was that for you?
Torturous and panic attacks and, absolute, it really is. There's no way through it other than through it. But what I did was I wrote it down, I journaled it, I used affirmations. My mum and I walked. We did a little bit of meditation. We did a little bit of Reiki. We really sort of, even now to this day, if I've got something going on, I get straight inside with meditation into my body, into my soul. What is this? What's going on? Let's just get through it. Because, you can't skirt around the issue and use positivity unless you've gone first into the pain, into the trauma, whatever it is that you need to get into and gone through it and seen what it is. And then you can begin the healing. Then you can begin to seek the light. Then you can begin to laugh at yourself, because it is the ridiculousness of everything that we do in this life is only one step away from the seriousness. If you can find that ridiculousness and laugh, the healing that comes from that is huge.
So what, again, if you don't want to answer this, please don't, but what do you think the trauma was inside you?
Self-worth, self-hatred, all the times somebody called you a name or told you were ugly or told you weren't good enough. You store it. That's coming from childhood, I got a lot of bullying as a kid because I'm naturally a redhead. And, in Scotland, we treat our redheads terribly, which is insane because that's our home. I had a mother of somebody that I had been on one date with bump into me in a pub in the toilets and said, oh, you're the girl that my son took out last week. Oh, well, I won't be letting him marry you. There's absolutely no way we're having ginger babies in our family. Now, people don't allow you to feel upset about that because they think it's silly.
Yeah, you should be able to deal with that.
But what you've just heard is your genetics are faulty. Nobody wants to procreate with you. Now that on a cellular level is really quite a lot to deal with when you're 13, 14, 15, and it's all the time. You think, I'm inferior. You know, I'm going to have to work harder in this life because somehow I've ended up with, you know, a bad genetic mix. So all of that gets swallowed down. And everybody in this life feels unworthy for some reason or another, or unloved. You've maybe just not had the right mix of love in your childhood or support. We've all got it. We've all got one reason or another. And back then we stored all that because nobody wanted you to talk about it. There was no outlet.
Well, no one also called out how horrible those comments were. As you're talking just then, I was thinking about my equivalent must have been, and I think I wrote about this once, I remember like just instinctively loving food as a child, because what is not to love about food and delicious food? And I remember being at a family roast Sunday lunch or something, you know, and going for a second helping of potatoes. And I remember this kind of elderly male figure saying, "Ooh, Bryony's a bit greedy. She's got an appetite on her." Yeah. In this really kind of shameful way that it told me then as a small child, oh, that's bad. Yeah. That's bad. As a woman, I shouldn't be doing this, you know? And I think you're right. I think sometimes as well, women, we can suffer from mental illnesses and eating disorders, and we can be like, but why? Because I had a lovely upbringing. Nothing bad happened to me. Yeah. And yet
then you start looking at it and you think there was a million tiny little paper cuts.
The way that culture was actually incredibly harmful to us.
And they add up. You know, I remember the first time I did start to get a little bit chubby, someone said to me, and I know so many other women that have heard this, you can't be ginger and fat. You have to choose one. You know, you can't have both of those, or you know, nobody is going to want you. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I have to be thin. You know, that's something I can do. And of course, then I started dyeing my hair. Then I started, you know, what I am as a person is unlovable, therefore I have to become something else. We all do that, don't we? We all get, the first time somebody breaks our heart or puts us down, we all go, right, I am not enough as I am. I have to become someone else. And then midlife is a sort of coming back to who you were in the beginning and going, there was absolutely nothing wrong with you.
Well, also, you just say, when you were just talking there, it's that what I think drives so much of my work now is this rage about how all of our value as women was often placed in the way we physically looked. It was like, you know, like a sweet package or something, you know, and nobody ever really cared about our personalities and our characters and the richness of the multitudes and the brilliance that we all carry inside us, you know. We all learned that to be accepted, we had to look attractive. Yeah. And that is what makes me absolutely
such
furious.
A distraction, isn't it? Such a huge conspiracy distraction. We're all so busy doing all of that, you know, that it took up so much of our time. And, you know, men were just lovely walking about as themselves and nobody
not
ever
having
told
to
them.
think about it. You've mentioned a lot the role of things like affirmations and meditation in your healing from your eating disorder. It seems to me like that was always there, that sort of spiritual presence. Yeah. And I'm really interested in talking to you about that because I think we can all be quite sniffy about what, even I'm going to call it the woo, you know, the magic of the woo. Yeah. People, we say, oh, that sounds a bit woo-woo. Yeah. I think I'll leave that one alone, thank you. Yeah. And the cynicism, I think, about embracing these different, perhaps more kind of woo-woo parts of life, I think sometimes is our is sometimes mental illness and mental ill health in itself. You know, it's like that inability to embrace a different way of thinking keeps us trapped in misery often. So I wanted to talk to you about the power of the woo and how much it means to you and how you harness it and how you are managing with your poetry to spread the woo to the world without them even realizing that's what you're doing.
Thank you. That was the plan. I love that it worked. When you say woo-woo, I go, yay.
Me too.
Because there's so much to be said on this. Where do we even begin? But if I hadn't gone on a spiritual path at 17, I don't think I would have been here in the same capacity that I am today.
Really?
And for me, it's not just the woo-woo, it's the science of the woo-woo. And the thing in magic, I call it magic. So magic is just science we don't know yet. You know, if you said to somebody 100 years ago that you can get on your phone and order food to your house and find out any fact in the known world in 1 second flat, they would think that was woo-woo, magic, occult. They would never be able to expand their brain to understand. You know, and we talk about Wi-Fi. Do you know what Wi-Fi is?
No.
It's waves that communicate all. I mean, is that not woo-woo? Just in technology form. So, I mean, I love the science behind the woo-woo. So I went to the Joe Dispenza retreat in Mexico this year where all the scientists came to talk to us. He's uncovering the science behind the way you're thinking makes your body heal or not heal or changes your whole life, manifesting, visualization. But let's look at the science. Let's get the evidence. Let's measure it. So I'm a full believer anyway, and I have been my whole life. But seeing the science uncovered now, to me, is thoroughly fascinating. The way they will scan a brain at the start of a week, and then you do your meditation retreat for a week, and at the end of the week, you've got a completely different brain scan. Your gut biome's different, you know, and your blood is different. Everything, all the markers are completely different after a week of full-on meditation and healing with 2,000 people in one space. So I love all sides of the woo-woo. But before I went, I found it really difficult to sit still. And the thoughts and, you know, my brain is like London traffic. That's my brain. You know, nose gridlock, thoughts going in all directions and noise everywhere.
You have a diagnosis of ADHD, don't you?
Autism, ADHD. And of course, when you have autism and ADHD together, they behave quite differently, and they behave differently individually anyway. But there are elements of it that cancel one another out, so they present really differently, and it's quite complicated. But all you need to know is that your brain processes things in a slightly different way. When I wrote my kids' poetry book, I used Android phones and iPhones as an example. Some people have an Android processing system and some people have an iPhone processing system, but you can text one another and you can play the same games, but you can't download everything in exactly the same way. The user manual's different.
I love that. I kind of want you to do a kids explainer that for me for everything. So can I've got so many questions. Okay, so let's start with the spiritual path.
Yeah.
At 17. How did you discover it? Because there might be people listening who are like, okay, I'm willing to put aside my cynicism for 30 seconds and embrace the spiritual path.
Okay.
How did you go down it?
My mum took me to the doctor when I first became anorexic, and he said, you need to put weight on, and we left. So
that was the solution.
That was the solution. So we immediately booked a weekend Reiki course, and my mum was already on a spiritual path, and she knew that the only way for me to come back from this now was to understand the brain-body connection. My mum's just an incredible woman. She does not like it when I talk about her, and yet here I am once again all the time talking about her. But she's just so wise, and so, you know, so she put me on that path. Once you're on that path, as is the way, everything starts to come to you, because you're magnetizing it, you're attracting it. The people walk into your life who have the same sort of beliefs, and you're off and you're running. And once you see the signs and you allow yourself to believe in the first one, you're on a journey then where they're in you every single day, and there's no getting away from it. It's real. It works. It's why people for centuries have prayed and had faith, because if you have that belief in something bigger than us and the community of it, and the fact that we can help one another by thought, and by prayer. It's huge. So I've been on a spiritual path. And also, prior to that, our family as a whole were very, we hear things, we see things that, maybe are not in everybody's everyday life. But I've always been slightly obsessed with morbid things, not in a horror way, don't like horror at all, but I can hear dead people.
Really?
There's no other way to say it, Bryony.
Have you ever said this before out loud?
Oh, probably lots of times. Probably not on a podcast.
Okay, so you hear spirits?
Yeah, and I always have. And I've always had those experiences where they come into our life and into our being. It happens at every event. We were talking about it on Friday night, weren't we? If you read a grief poem and you're talking about grief and everybody in the audience is thinking about somebody that they have lost, the room is going to fill with extra energy that didn't buy a ticket, if you know what I mean. And that is, there are many ways you could look at that, in that just by thinking about somebody, you bring their essence in. Or you could look at it straight down the barrel, there's spirit in the room. Whatever way you're comfortable with, it exists in energy. We all have an energy. So you and I right now are sharing energy, because your energy field is, a good meter outside of your physical being. So we are now bathing in one another's life force. And that's why a lot of the things that people don't say, you can hear, you can feel, because you're getting it on a energy level. We're communicating in waves, and that can be measured. That's science. But the spiritual aspect of it is probably the one that people struggle with most. I've always been able to hear what people were thinking, even when they didn't say it. And that can be difficult.
So for example, can you hear what I'm thinking, like that I'm asking these questions and that maybe I don't want to know the answer?
But you do.
Yeah. Can you like feel that energy of, for example, me or?
Yeah, absolutely. And so from a young person, I would be looking at someone, listening to their words, seeing their lips move and thinking, you're thinking something completely different.
Really?
Than what you're saying. And that's very confusing, because you're hearing one thing and you're feeling another thing. And so there comes the mistrust and communication. And, then you think, I must be mad. It must be me, because everybody else is getting along just fine. But I think you're actually looking at me and saying something completely different.
Wow. So on Friday, I'm tearing up a bit. On Friday, I said to you, I had opened your book and I had read this poem. I had just opened it on a random page and I had read this poem, which was, I Miss You.
Yes.
And it had landed with me for a particular reason. Friday, I missed you today. On Friday evening, we sat down. We did this event where I interviewed Donna, and we were in a church in central London, and it was a beautiful big room. And it was a church, but it had these sort of fabulous, like a massive almost chandelier in the middle. Yeah. And we sat down when we came on to I'm going to say stage, but it was actually an altar. Yeah. And all of the lights crackled.
Yeah. And so many of the people that were at that event have sent me videos that every time grief was mentioned, the lights all went. And, say what you like, be cynical, but, it's there. It happens all the time. And it's not scary to me at all. It's absolutely wonderful, because the essence of these people that we love, especially if you're related, physically related, you are in one another. The cellular, the DNA, the passing, that energy, it still remains, it still exists. But whenever you think of someone, your thoughts are electric. Every thought that you have has a pulse that can be measured electrically. That's going out into the energy. That person is in that thought. That person is in that. They're there. They're always there. So you can look at it on so many levels, but people who are no longer with us are still with us in so many ways. And I just think it's one of the most beautiful things. And a lot of people don't want you to talk about it because they're worried you'll make people who are sad sadder. And you can't do that by mentioning the name of the person that they miss. You can't make them sadder. They are without that person. Every time you mention them, you bring back the love, you bring back the connection, you bring back the whole point of why we're alive, which is healing. You know, it spurs you on, it keeps you moving. So I'm not afraid to talk about grief on the radio or at events, because we need to do it so much more.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for people, isn't it? When I think the way we deal with death very much in this country is, we have the kind of funeral or whatever, and then we kind of move on, and you know, and it's like, we'll never speak of this again.
Yeah.
And actually, and people are afraid, aren't they, to kind of, they're like, well, I don't want to trigger something in the person. And actually, I'm not sorry. I'm crying. It's coming up for a year since I lost a very dear friend of mine. And I've spoken a little bit about it on the podcast. And yeah, would you read I Missed You Today? Because it's a beautiful poem. And I think I just love the idea of, I feel like I'm slightly cheekily trying to get a free audio book out of you here, Donna.
Do you know what, Bryony? Nobody lets me read grief poetry on the radio or on a podcast unless it's a specific grief podcast. So this is an absolute joy for me. As I always say, I love to talk about grief because I'm really fun. Because I know for a fact that it heals and it helps. So this one is called I Missed You Today. I missed you today, but that's nothing new. I missed you a million times yesterday too. I picked up my phone to tell you the news, then realised again I can't text it to you. I saw your bright smile at least 20 times, and then I remember it's all in my mind. I drive without presents, the world feels surreal, and on comes your song, and this doesn't seem real. I missed you today, but I miss you a lot. It's helpful to miss you, it's all that I've got. I wish I could pull you down here for a while. I'm scared I'll forget the shape of your smile. I miss you today, and I'll miss you tomorrow. There seems to be no coming end to this sorrow. I try to go on, as I know that you care, and I know that you're willing me on from up there. I miss you today, but I'm trying to find a way to move on and not leave you behind, a way to forge through with the love that we had, a way to recall you and simply feel glad.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I feel very comfortable just sitting here crying.
Wonderful.
So is there a specific person that was written with in mind, or is it the grief that you perhaps pick up from being around people all the time?
100%. I mean, everybody has their own grief. You know, we all lose people along the way, and I'm 50 now, and I'm losing friends, people my own age, you know, and that's a whole other thing. But I'm constantly thinking about other people's grief and listening to the stories of who they've lost and standing in their energy fields at an event and picking it up, and back that goes into a poem and back that goes out into the world. And it's a constant cycle of speaking to people about their, you know, their love experiences, because that's what it is. You can't have grief without love. It doesn't exist. It's just sadness otherwise for the world or so on. But even from childhood, I remember going to bed at night grieving for other people and their grief. And I remember somebody saying to me, if you're going to grieve for people that you don't know, this life is going to have its way with you and you're not going to make it. You know, you can't take on other grief that isn't in your orbit. But I didn't know how not to. So now I know how not to. I know that you can process it and make it useful. Right. Not shut it all down and say, don't feel that. Feel the feelings that you're having. Make a little poem out of it, or a quote, or whatever it is that you do. If you paint or you present or you interview or whatever you've got access to in this life, to bring that back out into society in a way that's helpful. And that's how we all survive. We need one another. We can't do it alone.
So is that how poetry, or, I mean, you don't even, you know, when you talk about first sitting down to write, you don't even describe it as poetry. It was just stuff that came out.
There's no rhyme or reason to it, quite literally sometimes. Sometimes it does rhyme, sometimes it doesn't. I never think about it like that because it arrives in my head and it's a message. And my job is to get that message out as simply as I can, as impactfully as I can, so that it can go out and find its people. And I've always felt that that's how it was. And sometimes I feel like somebody's given me the message for someone else and out it goes. And sometimes the message is for me. And I think, okay, that's helpful to me. I'm going to share it because it will help somebody else. Because if it helps me, it's going to help others. So I don't have a system that works as a process in that way, other than I sit down and I listen to myself and the voices.
So hang on, let me just compose myself for a moment. Okay.
Oh.
So, you were, what I find really beautiful about this, Donna, is that you were a very, what we would have, many of us would have been called a sensitive child.
Yes.
You found it very difficult not to be affected by the things going around you. And I've read an interview with you where you spoke about being at university and feeling really affected. A fellow student died by suicide. And then you were reading about the Jamie Bulger case in the news, and it felt really deep. And I think that will be relatable to people in that sometimes it can feel very hard not to take on the heaviness of the world.
Yeah.
So what I'm really interested in, and what I think is really helpful for people at home who may be, who may not be able to connect perhaps with the reading spirits or seeing spirits, is that thing of taking energy and turning it, taking that beautiful sensitivity and empathy. That's what it really is. That's the essential, and turning it into something beautiful that helps other people.
Yeah. And there's such a power to it, because if you're stressed about something and you can't do anything, that stress becomes really dangerous. It becomes dangerous to your mental health because there's no action you can take to fix that. And as humans, we need to be doing something towards the stress that we're feeling to try and combat it. If you think that there's something that you can be doing, you look at the world and you think the world's a mess. I can't do anything. You feel hopeless. It's dangerous. But if you think, wait a minute, I can be kind to myself today. I can be kind to every single person in my orbit. I can look for the light. I can share that with someone. And if you understand the power that has in ripple effect, if you realize the way that reverberates in your bubble to the next person's bubble, bubble, pop, but reach, the ripples reach, they go and they go and they go and they go. Suddenly you've got power. You're no longer hopeless. You're able to do something by doing the tiniest of things. So I saved myself, or I was saved by realizing that there is always something you can do even when you feel helpless, and it's the tiniest of things. So every single little footstep that you take on a daily basis has the butterfly effect. It travels, and if we're all doing that, imagine the impact. It's huge.
So Louise Hay, who you referred to, who is...
Louise saved my life.
Louise saved my life. So Louise Hay, for anyone who has never read any Louise Hay, she was this... I mean, she's the queen of woo-woo. And she's sadly not with... Well, she would say, I'm not with you in...
She's still with me.
Physical... And
she's probably here right now, Bryony.
And she wrote this book. I mean, she's always in my heart. Yeah. Okay, Louise Hay. If I beg of you, if you're listening to this and you have not read Louise Hay, go get yourself. Was it You Can Heal Your Life? It is. Go in with an open mind, okay? Like you may read some of it and go, "What the fuck have Donna and Bryony just forwarded me to?"
Yeah. You won't regret it,
but you won't regret it. And Louise says, she's like, mate. She said her thing was the point of power is always in the present.
Yes.
And that's kind of what you're talking about there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we may feel hopeless because of terrible things that have happened or that we can't change things. But she's like, no, sweetie, you can change.
Yeah. And it's also the power of knowing that by helping yourself, you're helping the world.
Well, that's interesting because I think people do feel powerless, don't they? And they feel like, what can I do if I don't have trillions of followers or, I'm not famous and I don't have a platform?
I see people doing it every day, Bryony.
Yes.
In the communities and just in the smallest of ways by showing up. The way, remember in lockdown, I don't like to think about lockdown so much, but the way we dropped food off at one another's doorsteps and all these little kindnesses that we were doing, but they were absolutely huge. They had such impact. And we really saw them then because we were so desperate, to look for the light in the hopes that all these little things that people did became heroic efforts. And yet people do that all day, every day. And they don't think that they're any great shake. They don't think they've got a purpose in this life, or what am I doing? I'm not doing anything special. I watch these people every single day doing special thing after special thing after special thing, and they don't even know that they're doing it. And it's huge. And every single person that they touches somebody else, and on that goes. And it's absolutely incredible. You just have to look for it.
You do have to look for it. And that's what I find your poetry does so well, is that, because I find, and I don't know if you find this relatable, Donna, or if anyone listening or tuning in finds this relatable, but it's so easy I find it, like I don't even realize it's happening. So I will wake up one morning and be like, right, today is the day, and I'm gonna be positive, and I'm feeling really good. And it's like, I always describe it as, I feel like I'm like the reverse of a mobile phone. Do you know what I mean? Like anything I've learned one day, I'll wake up the next morning and it will have gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's like forgotten, like I've decharged, you know, the opposite of charge. And so easy for the negativity of the world to sort of seep in and get us, you know, and then before we know it, I'm like, oh God, in a spiral.
You can't wait for the mood to take you.
Yeah, so what's your advice?
You have to make the mood. So when you wake up in the morning, okay, you have a filter in your brain called the RAS filter, RAS, and it waits to see what your first few thoughts are.
Really?
And then it goes, aha, that's what we're looking for today. So when you know this, your first 3 thoughts are, what a beautiful morning. I am seeking light and joy today. I am alive. Look at my beautiful dog. Look at my lovely snoring husband. Coffee, I get coffee. Then your RAS filter goes, right, this is what we're doing today, we're seeking. So you cannot wait for your emotional mood to be right to seize the day. You make your emotional mood right, and you make the intention that that's what you're going to have today. And that way you're not you're not able to be sabotaged by your own emotion, because you go, oh, I feel a negative emotion coming in now. You have to go into it and see what it is, because it's real. You can't just go sweep over it, la 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 la, I'm positive, because that wouldn't work either. Whitewashing over the cracks doesn't work. You do have to go in and be real and look at the news and look at what's going on, and why are you sad? Why are you grieving? And, you know, what are you facing today? But then you must always come out with the intention, helping someone else, helping yourself, seeking comfort, sharing comfort, spreading light, and choosing that path over any other path. I mean, I used to be a glass half empty person.
Really?
Big time, huge pessimist, overthinker. My mind has been brilliant at it my whole life. So I've had to train it to do the absolute opposite. Otherwise, that's what you're constantly seeking.
You have described your eating disorder as being like an addiction. And I think that's really interesting. I wanted to kind of talk to you about that, because we don't often see eating disorders as in the same category as alcoholism or drug addiction, although actually they're often treated in the same sentence.
Yeah.
And you were saying how you've had to sort of treat it like an addictive process.
Yeah, I think for me, that's what helped me, because I felt completely addicted to the control of being able to starve myself and have that feeling of, you know, absolute dopamine that I would weirdly get out of being hungry, and knowing that I had that, you know, power to control that aspect of my life. So to me, it felt like an addiction. It also felt like when I had to finally break free from it, I felt like I was murdering a person.
Really?
A best friend, someone who was with me through thick and thin. When everything failed, my eating disorder was always there for me. Come on, she'd say, let's go home and not eat. How fun. We've got each other, you know, and that was so weirdly comforting for me in the throes of it. I felt like I had to kill her. And I remember having these conversations, with myself, where she would say, "You'll never get this from anything else or anybody else. You'll regret killing me. You can't do this on your own." And that I felt that physical tear apart. It felt like a soul tear as well. It felt huge to me. But innately, I knew that she was also killing me at the same time. And I think that can resonate with a lot of people who have an addiction of any kind.
Absolutely resonates. As you're talking there, I was just thinking about those last days of drinking for me, where I knew that I had to stop drinking. I had to stop seeing this friend, alcohol and drugs. But I had no idea how I would live without it.
You would live without it.
And it's like I was having to murder a friend who had literally given me my life.
And it's not a two-way road.
Yeah.
You know that you can't go back down that road, because if you do, you're back into the throes of the addiction. You can't visit. You can't even write letters. And, and you and I were talking about the culture at the moment that is veering back towards skinny can be really threatening for people who have been through eating disorders. Or because, for example, I can't go on diets, or even if it's a highly nutritional diet.
So anything that kind of masquerades as
if
wellness.
I'm prioritising food in my mind, I'm in a dangerous, vulnerable position. Food has to remain just a fuel for me. Yeah. If I look into all of the ways food will help the menopause, for example, which is really healthy, then I'm back into prioritising food as a topic in my brain, and I have far too many neural pathways there waiting to spark up again. Because beliefs are thoughts that you've had so many times that they hardwire. And you can build new neural pathways all of the time, but the dead circuits are still there waiting to kind of spark up again the minute the conversation goes, "Oh, we're all still here lighting up, come back into this place where I used to spend my whole day counting calories." I would count and count and count and recount and count, and I never ever wrote it down because I enjoyed the process of constantly having something to focus on that wasn't life, that wasn't living, that wasn't loving. It's a distraction. So when the conversation starts to become very focused on losing weight, it can be dangerous for people who've got those
receptors are still there
waiting to spark up at any time. So I've got to be mindful of diet talk or nutritional talk even, or anything like that, because I can so quickly get sucked back in without realising it. Food has to be a complete side issue for me at all times.
How do you protect yourself in this world that is obsessed again with weight loss and GLP-1s?
I drown out the noise and I focus on what's important. And what's important is you're listening to this person that's in your company. What have you laughed about today? Who have you loved today? What kindness have you shared today? It all sounds so cheesy, but it's absolutely the only way to actually live. Cheese is so good. And don't believe anyone who tells you otherwise. You've got to keep focus on what's important. And what's important is people showing up every day, helping each other, trying to live a life that feels loving and safe and helpful. And we all need one another. We're not separate. We're never separate. We're connected in every single way you can possibly imagine. So poetry is a great way of doing it because I'm writing it every day, I'm sharing it every day. So it's hard for me to stray.
Right. So poetry is your saviour and your healing.
Journaling's a great way. If you journal every single day and if you wake up every day and you choose your gratitudes to start the day, there's nothing better you can do with that than to sit in gratitude in life. It's the ultimate state of receiving. You're already thankful. So you can only receive more good stuff because all of the receptors in your brain are now firing on that and reaching for it, seeing it, creating it. It really does magnetically work. And my mum and I were talking yesterday about how people used to say grace before they ate. Now, when you eat with stress, guilt, for example, if you're going, I shouldn't be eating this, I shouldn't be eating this, I shouldn't be eating it, you're literally telling your body to create cortisol, which literally creates fat for your fat cells. You're eating with guilt, you're eating with misery, you're eating with shame. There's only one way that food is going to go. It's not going to be great. But if you're eating with joy and gratitude and how lovely it is to be here with friends and look at us sharing this food, your brain's creating all of the good chemicals, and that food is being, different things are happening within your body with that food. Again, the science will show you that. So we didn't realise we were doing it back in the day when everybody said grace before they ate. They were thanking God for the food, but you were sitting in gratitude, which creates all the lovely chemicals and the lovely thoughts. So that's a brilliant practice to get back into.
I've got a challenge for you.
Go on.
I want you to write a modern day version of grace.
Oh, that's such a good idea, Bryony.
I think it is something where it's also a moment to pause and give thanks for this thing that has been, food is just, I think, for women, and this takes us right back actually to the beginning, to where we started with in this conversation, which is how poisoned food has become for so many women, and how it is slightly returning to that after all the work that,
so much good work was done,
that we have done to deprogram ourselves from diet culture and this idea that food is bad or good, or it's just fucking food.
Just food.
It's there to be enjoyed, not to be enjoyed, whatever. I think that what the world needs is Donna Ashworth to revamp for what we are about to receive. May the Lord make us truly thankful.
Yeah.
Amen. Was that it?
Yeah.
Was that it?
More or less.
More or less.
Yeah.
I would love.
Well, it's
Donna
funny because I
Ashworth
say affirmations all the time. I don't even know I'm doing it. I programmed my brain 30 years ago with Louise Hay. So on a loop, I always call it like positive FM radio. You've got a radio station that plays in your mind all the time. You don't even know it. It's tuned in. And so if you're memorising affirmations, you start by writing them down, because again, repetition creates neural pathways in your brain that then you have muscle memory. You don't even have to think about it. So I trained my brain. But if I tune in, I can hear it. I am safe, I am loved, I am, all of these things are going around my head constantly.
When I first read Louise Hay, and that was about 2 years ago, and I, as someone who has suffered from obsessive compulsive disorder since childhood,
me too.
And this might, my brain is full of sort of phrases that I had to say to keep my family alive, which.
Oh, yes.
So I have, with the help of positive affirmations, I have slowly managed to tune out those weird kind of phrases I had to say the one I just have going around my head is, I love and approve myself exactly as I am.
Lovely. And what a lovely thing to be constantly feeding to your brain, because your brain is hearing that and creating things on that basis that you love and approve of yourself right now. So you've got calm hormones coming, you've got chemicals coming that heal, you've got all the positive stuff coming. Whereas when you're criticising yourself, your brain is literally creating the stress chemicals and the stress, and all of that's going into your bloodstream. And, and we're addicted to these stress hormones as well. So I know so many people, and I was one of them, that would need that stress hormone. That was my fuel. I know I would be able to get it done because I'm running on adrenaline. And it's harder to get things done when you're not running on adrenaline, or so we believe, because we don't have that intensity, pressure that we feel that drives us. But actually, it's so much better to do things out of the proper place of calm and measuredness, and it's entirely possible you will get it done. You might do it slowly, but the rush that we've created in our minds is created by us and perpetuated by us. It's not real. It doesn't actually exist. So affirmations are absolute genius. They completely work. If you're overwhelmed by this chat, and if you do that every day for a week, watch what will then happen. You will open up to a place where you can then add something else in, but it'll be organic. It'll be easy. I always say it's coming for me rather than force change on myself. I feel it coming in the atmosphere. This cheap, like when I gave up alcohol, I could feel it coming for me for a good year and a half. This change is coming for me. There's something better on the other side of this social drinking that we've all accepted as the norm. I've got a feeling that on the other side of that hill, there's paradise. But if I force myself into this change, it will be chaos. It will be a mess. I'll just keep flip-flopping. You have to wait until you're invited
The time is
in.
right.
It's come for you and you go, yeah, here we go. And you open yourself up to it and it works.
So how long have you not been drinking for now?
So I think we will be 3 years in April, my husband and I. I've had about 2 to 3 glasses of champagne in that time. One on New Year's Day, one on, I think, on my 50th birthday. But they hold nothing for me anymore. You know, it's whatever's in the glass that you're toasting. It's about the glass and the toast and the people that are there and the, you know, the ceremony. But without alcohol, life has never been better for me. I've never felt more confident. I've never felt more safe in my own skin. You have to be your own safe space in this life. And alcohol puts a barrier between you and yourself. You're constantly trying to come back to yourself. You know, you'd be drinking all weekend. You'd get back to yourself by Wednesday. That would be me. And then by Thursday, I would be going, oh, it's nearly Friday.
Yeah.
And off you go again. And the noise in my head about should I drink today or not drink today was so obsessive compulsive that it, like with the calorie counting, it took up all my thoughts. And I had no time to focus on being alive, you know, and what's going on in the world and who am I and my friends and life and all the joys. So getting rid of the noise around alcohol was the best bit of all. I didn't have to think, am I going to have a drink this weekend? I'm only going to have 2. I better not have that. I better not do this. I better not say that. It all went. And suddenly the space in my brain was glorious and felt like, oh, I can see.
Yeah. I remember always thinking that it didn't, I used to say, I don't wake up and drink, you know, I can't have a problem. I don't wake up and drink. And then getting to the point where I was like, well, I may as well be drinking all day because I'm thinking about it all day.
And the feeling when you could get to the time in the day when you're allowed to have a little drink, it's like, yeah, I made it. And then you switch off. You check out your own vehicle and you let something else drive it, you know, and that's quite terrifying to me now. The thought of doing that.
Donna Ashworth, joy did choose you. It really did. I would like to get you back on and continue this conversation. I think that there is so much in what we have spoken about today. And you said to anyone listening who feels overwhelmed by all of the information, what I want you to do is save this podcast, maybe forward it to someone who, a friend or something, and listen to it together and discuss it. Like, turn it into a bit of a book club and get Donna's book, Joy Chose You, and come back and listen to it again, because you might hear, I'm going to go and listen to this again because I feel like there are so many things going through my head right now.
Me too.
I think you're amazing.
Oh, me too. I think you're amazing.
I'm so grateful for the soul cleanse that you've just given me. Thank you, Donna Ashworth, for coming on The Life of Bryony.
Thank you for having me.
I really need to know your thoughts about my therapy session with Donna there. Please DM me on Instagram at Bryony Gordon and let me know what spoke to you the most. There were so many different subjects that we covered there. Like, I think I need to go back and listen to it again. She'll be back on Friday for our special bonus episode, The Life of You. In the meantime, please don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, rave about us to all of your friends, but most of all, look after yourself. I'll see you next time.